After 1890, important changes took place within the German Empire, both in domestic and foreign policy. The period was marked by military parades and grandeur. Bismarck was fired by Wilhelm II, and the latter's ambitious foreign policy got Germany into conflict with other European powers. Germany was no longer saturiert, as Bismarck called it years before. Within Germany, modern and reactionary forces both gained momentum, and internationally, European powers were wary of Germany's aggressive and unclear ambitions. What was Germany's objective in foreign policy? How did the European nations react to this? And what was the domestic political sentiment during these years? In 1897, Wilhelm II and Germany adopted a new policy, Weltpolitik. Through colonial expansion and building a strong fleet, Germany wanted to obtain a Platz an der Sonne, a place under the sun. The balance of power through alliances made place for an aggressive foreign policy. Germany had a strong industrial apparatus but no colonies, unlike Great Britain and France. The future was auf dem Wasser, on the water, as Alfred von Tirpitz, Germany's Grand Admiral, put it. Battleships became symbol of Germany. Alfred von Tirpitz managed to build the modest German navy into a dominating powerhouse. This change in Germany's direction had major effects on Europe's balance of power. England, France, Russia and the United States had to give up a bit of their power. Political leaders in Berlin thought Weltpolitik could occur peacefully, an illusory thought. The other great powers were not going to let the Germans expand and grow into an actual competition. Bismarck's anti-French sentiment and the alliance with Austria-Hungary was a heavy toll on Germany's foreign policy. The Rückversicherungsvertrag with Russia was not extended by Bismarck's successors. This treaty entailed that in case of a war between Russia and Austria-Hungary, their relations were tense due to the Balkan conflicts, or a war between France and Germany, given that Russia and Germany were not the aggressors, the two countries would not attack each other. In 1894, the French-Russian alliance was established. Exactly what Bismarck feared. Germany was now landlocked between two enemies. In 1904, the English established the Entente Cordiale with France. 3 years later, in 1907, the Triple Entente with France, Russia and England was a fact. Germany became politically isolated. Military leaders wanted a preventive war to break the Entgleisung, encirclement. And there definitely were attempts by Germany to break the Triple Entente. They failed to break the Triple Entente during the Maroc crises in 1905 and 1911 and during the Balkan Wars in 1908 and 1912 to 1913. The political crisis in the Balkan led to the First World War in July 1914. Domestic, political and socio-economic aspects of the German Empire gained momentum. During the 1890s, Germany became the strongest industrial state on the European continent, showcasing unheard-of economic growth. The population grew from 49 million in 1890 to 67 million in 1913. In 1890, half of the population lived in rural areas. In 1914, this was 1/3. Millions of farmers migrated to the East Albion farm grounds, or big cities in the West. The industrial output doubled. The production of coal saw an increase from 89 million tons in 1890 to 277 million tons in 1914. The production of steel was even more impressive. In 1914, 17.6 million tons was produced annually. This was more than France, England and Russia combined. There were innovations in the area of electricity and chemistry. Companies were established that we still know today. Examples are Siemens and AIG, Bayern and Hoechst. Agriculture was the only economical sector structurally in crisis. As a reaction to the fast-paced development, Germany became the stage of both modern and anti-modern elements. Tensions in religious, political and socio-economic areas kept growing. Thomas Nipperdy described a transitional society during the industrialization of the 90s. Old hierarchical structures had not yet disappeared, while new ones had yet to take shape. modern and pre-modern, progressive and democratic against traditional and conservative, religious and secular, and industrial to pre-industrial. Traditional norms and values lost in importance because of the industrialization and social and vertical mobility. Some groups resisted these drastic changes due to uncertainty of their social position as a result of modernization. Others wanted to make the German Volk more prominent. Wilhelmine society was marked by a dynamic and uncertain character. This uncertainty was fed by people realizing that they were living between two eras, the so-called fin de siècle, a Katastrophen- und Aufbruchstimmung, a catastrophe and departure sentiment, became prevalent in German society, decadence and cultural pessimism versus progressivity and trust. During the Wilhelmine period, socio-economic changes and the old political power structures clashed. Germany was still dominated by an agrarian, feudalistic, industrial and cultural elite who did not want to share power with other groups. The empire had a parliament, but at the same time a monarchy with an influential aristocracy. Feudal, bureaucratic and authoritarian elements stood against liberal and progressive ones. There was a large middle class, but at the same time, a strong Prussian militaristic orientation. Militarism was important both in politics and society. The Reichstag was the only parliament in Europe where ministers wore their uniform and saber while addressing their fellow parliamentarians. Domestic policy saw debate on how to divide power in a rapidly changing society. Between 1890 and 1914, social democrats and left liberals wanted democratization. Yet, only in October 1918, after the defeat in World War I, constitutional reforms would be implemented and form the basis of the Weimar Republic. Beforehand, democratic powers lacked cohesion and development in order to change the semi-constitutional system implemented in 1871 by Bismarck. The Sozialistische Partei Deutschland, the SPD, kept gaining seats at elections, whereas conservatives and national liberals had electoral disappointments. The aristocratic elite of Prussia kept their dominant position within the bureaucracy, the army and the diplomacy. They became socially isolated, defensive in politics and economically in retreat. All the while, society became more progressive. Elements that supported this were the increase in free press and modern art. The monarchy and aristocracy drifted further away from society and politics. Civil society was weak and disorganized. There was a fear of socialism by national liberals. Monarchy and aristocracy attempted to cling onto their dominant position with success. National liberals supported the ambition to establish Weltmacht and colonial expansion, citing economic and nationalistic reasons. Traditional parties feared that parliamentary democracy would disintegrate social cohesion and national unity. For now, economic modernization became the priority above individual liberties and democracy. The social issue was prominent. The citizenry became politically conscious and active. There was a rapidly growing number of working-class citizens, the proletariat, as Marx described them. Youth movements, such as the Wandervogel movement, political parties and interest groups manifested themselves. Germany's civil society was rapidly growing. On the one side, old social groups, such as the old middle class and the Bildungsbürgertum, the educated bourgeoisie, were losing their influence. Modern capitalism, increased bureaucracy and rationalization and secularization, Max Weber called it the Entzauberung der Welt, caused powerful anti-capitalist and anti-liberal reactionary movements intertwined with anti-Semitism and anti-socialism. Not only the traditional elite had reactionary convictions, parts of the new middle class were opposed to modernism as well. Germany can be seen as an upstart, a newly rich that got big and strong too fast. The result was the overestimation of one's own abilities. Bismarck ensured Germany became powerful within Europe and consolidated domestic power. This was done during the scramble for Africa of other countries and the colonization of the world by Great Britain and France, for example. Typical for the Wilhelmine period was the Drang nach Größe. Germany did not want to be left behind. The period was tainted by an overestimation and lack of restraint. Potential allies, such as Great Britain, started to become wary of the new German Reich. While Germany was afraid to be landlocked in between hostile powers, Max Weber compared Wilhelmine Germany to a rudderless, speeding train. After Bismarck's dismissal, Germany adopted an expansionist and militarist strategy for their foreign policy under Wilhelm II. This caused the balance of power to be disturbed and made it impossible for an alliance with the English. Germany became isolated, landlocked in between Russia and France. The international sphere and Germany's aggressive expansion politics became one of the factors that allowed the situation in 1914 to escalate towards World War I. Domestically, during the Wilhelmine period, progressive and reactionary movements gained momentum. There was an extreme industrial and economic growth, a new middle class sprung up, and the proletariat of Germany drastically increased in size. A debate about how power ought to be divided culminated in tensions between traditional elite and the new groups emerging in society. Wilhelm II and the aristocracy saw their power fade and clung on. Eventually, it would not be until after the Great War for a constitutional democracy to be established. This constitutional democracy was far from perfect due to the devastating consequences of the Great War. I've made a video about the first 5 years of the Weimar Republic, which involved 3 attempted coups, lots of revolutions, and an occupation of the Ruhr area by the French and Belgian troops. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have any questions surrounding the topic or would like me to cover a period or event in history, feel free to leave a comment. Until next Friday.